Does the Dome of the Rock have to be destroyed for the third temple?
That's what most people think when they consider, a rebuilding of the temple. Although not everybody thinks that is necessary, and because there is some dispute about where the temple actually sat, where the Holy of Holies was. There's a lot of religious Jews who believe that it's where the Dome of the Rock is. There was a gentleman, back in the late 80s, early 90s. He was a professor at the Hebrew University. He felt that the Holy of Holies actually was a little north of the Dome of the Rock, under a place or at a place called the Dome of the Tablets and the Spirits. So most people believe that the Dome of the Rock has to go. There are some who believe that it's possible that the temple could have sat just north and, technically speaking, could be on the same platform. There's even a passage in Revelation chapter 11 where John is told to measure the temple of God and the altar, but to leave the court outside, leave that out,
right,
because that's given over to the Gentiles. So some people have thought, well, maybe that is suggesting that there's going to be a temple alongside either the Dome of the Rock or the Alaska Mosque. I don't know. I find that problematic for a lot of reasons, but I guess.
Yeah. It's kind of like the burning of the red heifer right there,
right.
in Arab territory. Might be a problem with that.
That's right.
So the Ark of the Covenant is where they kept the Ten Commandments, and I know it was real. I know it existed, but I never, ever really thought we're going to find that. We're going to find that? Is that important for the rebuilding of the temple?
Well, technically speaking, the second temple, this is the one that was built after the Babylonian captivity, and then Herod expanded it.
Yeah.
That one did not have the Ark of the Covenant in it, and it was still considered the house of God. So there is historical precedent for building the temple and not having the Ark. However, there's prophecies that talk about how the glory of the latter house is going to be greater than the first one, referring to Solomon's, which had the Ark of the Covenant. So technically, they could rebuild it without the Ark. However, there have been those in Israel since the reunification of Jerusalem who, not only do they want to build a temple on the Temple Mount, but they want to find the Ark of the Covenant. And there are a lot of traditions as to what happened to the Ark of the Covenant. Some say that it went to Ethiopia, which I don't believe. Some people say that Jeremiah hid it in Mount Nebo, which is in Jordan. Some people believe that it is outside of the old city, buried. And then there are quite a number of people, and particularly people close to the idea of rebuilding the temple, who believe that it's buried somewhere underneath the Temple Mount. That's not really a big secret, honestly. It's all over the internet.
But I've stood at the place where they say right behind these stones is where they think the Holy of Holies is, which is where the Ark of the Covenant would be. And it's a labyrinth of passageways and everything underneath there. At least it used to be. But why would it? How could it possibly still be there when the Muslims have been digging underneath the Temple Mount for a long time and taking truckloads of dirt and antiquities out and just dumping them? Yeah.
Well, how could it still be there? I don't know that I have the answer to that question. I'll just say my faith would say that if God wanted it to be there, it's still there. Right. He has a way of watching over things.
But is it prophesied that it will be found and come back, or is this just something that some people think?
Well, the last time you see a mention of the Ark of the Covenant is when Josiah tells the priest to take the Ark of the Covenant and put it in the house that Solomon had prepared for it. And by the way, there are people who read into that, well, the Ark of the Covenant was already in the temple. What is Josiah saying? And some people say, well, that's he was hiding it because he knew the Babylonians were coming. And that's where some people think, well, it's hidden in somewhere around Jerusalem. Most people, close to the temple or rebuilt temple motivation think that it's underneath the Temple Mount. But, it disappears from the record is the point. And the next time you see anything mentioned, it's in the book of Revelation, actually, after all this other stuff is over with, all the bad stuff. So, yeah, it is a big mystery. I will tell you a quick story. 92, another gentleman, along with an Israeli friend, we went to the office of Rabbi Yehuda Getz, who at that time was over all of the holy places in Jerusalem. And to make a very long story short, Rabbi Getz did not believe that the Ark of the Covenant was in Ethiopia. He did not believe it was at Mount Nebo. He felt very confident he knew where the Ark of the Covenant was. And he did not tell us, but our Israeli friend later told us that in the early 80s, Yehuda Getz, along with Shlomo Goren and a lot of the men who were participants in the reunification of Jerusalem in 1967, actually, when these excavations begun, they were looking for the Ark of the Covenant because they believed that it was under the Temple Mount somewhere. I've even heard reports that Yehuda Getz supposedly saw the place where it was kept. Now, I don't know that to be a fact. So there are people who do believe it still exists. There are people that are in Jerusalem who would love for that to be revealed. And I would suggest that if that were to happen, you think the red heifer is going to call?
Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh.
So,
I mean, I can't imagine how that could be revealed and the whole world not taking real significant note. Whether you believe that what's ever in it are the remnants of the Ten Commandments or not, it doesn't matter. For the Ark of the Covenant to be revealed and come back, that would say a lot about Israel, about Jerusalem, about the times we live in. I mean, pretty much everything. Everything.
Well, if it still exists, and this is just my opinion, that's all it is, just an opinion. I tend to believe that if it exists and is going to be revealed, then it's probably going to coincide with the Messianic age, with the Messiah's return.
Oh, yeah.
And, I think that would probably be more likely. But that doesn't mean that there aren't people who would be very, very excited to have opportunity to find it, look for it, and if they could, bring it out. And that would cause World War III, most likely.
It probably would. It's weird, Bill. When you're over there, you don't understand how this little patch of land has caused so much turmoil, really, in the world. Why everybody seems to be centered on that patch of land, because it's not very big. And it's almost like it's a pulse. You can feel it. That Temple Mount, there's something about that area. It's God's throne, and you can feel it.
Exactly.
It's amazing.
Exactly.
It's amazing.
Well, and that what you just said is even prophetic. Prophecy says that he's going to make Jerusalem a burdensome stone.
Yes.
And even more so the Temple Mount, because that is where God's presence kissed the earth. That was and where the Ark of the Covenant basically was God's throne on earth.
Right.
So, it's a very contested piece of property, and it will be at the heart of the conflict, yes.
Bill Cloud, thank you so much. If you'd like to follow him, you can find him on his website at billcloud.org. That's billcloud.org. He's been teaching this stuff for a very, very long time. Bill, thank you so much. God bless you.